Welcome back to Nourished Inside Out, the space where growth gets real and self love leads the way. I'm your host, Annetta Walklaw, and before we dive into today's episode, I want to remind you of something powerful. You are worthy, you are enough, and you don't need to wait for permission to love yourself fully. That's exactly why I wrote my book, Blooming with Self Love, to give you the tools, affirmations, and daily mindset shifts to help you stand in your power and own your story. This book isn't just words on a page, it's a movement. So if you're ready to stop shrinking and start showing up for yourself, grab your copy today with the link in the show notes below, and let's walk this self-love journey together. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Nourished Inside Out. I am here with Jessica Setnick today, and she's an eating disorder specialist. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm delighted to be here. It's nice to see you again.
Absolutely. Do you mind telling us a little bit about your background and how you came about to specializing in eating disorders?
I don't mind at all. It starts when I went to college and didn't really have direction. I started as an anthropology major, which, if you don't know what anthropology is, I didn't either till I became a major in it. It's the study of humans, how humans develop, how we develop culture and language, all those kind of things. It includes archaeology, but I couldn't figure out exactly how to make a career out of it. So I took a nutrition class as an elective, and that's when everything clicked for me. I just thought, I love this nutrition, like what happens to food when it goes inside your body. It's like a magic trick. And so I was able to kind of combine that with my anthropology major. And then I went to grad school to become a sports dietitian. Well, what I found out when I was in school to become actually a sports nutritionist at the time, I wasn't a dietitian, is that in nutrition, no one was really talking about the things that I loved about anthropology, the development and why people make the choices they make and how culture influences things. And so it turned out that eating disorders was really the area where people were really talking about that stuff that I was so interested in. And so I ended up developing a specialty in the area of eating disorders.
It's so interesting. Like exactly what you said. It's what happens to the food when we digest it. And I think that's like something we never really think about. Like, how is it affecting us and how is it benefiting us? What are some ways to see if somebody has an eating disorder? How can you tell if somebody has an eating disorder?
You really can't tell, Anita. You really can't tell from the outside looking at a person's body size. You really can't tell what they're eating. A lot of what we eat is not something someone else can observe. So there's really no rules when it comes to knowing. Usually people with eating disorders feel pretty shy or even embarrassed about it and keep those things kind of secret. So it's really about being an open person and being open for, your friend to talk to. If there's something you're worried about, you can open the door to that. But a lot of times it's not anything anyone else can recognize. But if you're with someone a lot, you can start to sort of see some of the patterns.
How do eating disorders typically develop?
So the things that cause eating disorders are all the same things that we all experience. So if you have a food allergy or need to go on a special diet for some reason, if you feel like you want to cut back on what you're eating, weighing yourself to check and see what your weight is, eating disorders are just an extreme version of the things that we all do because someone has the genes that make it an obsession, make it a mental illness. And so we all really do normal stuff. Eating disorders, I guess, I feel like sometimes we have to sort of fight the belief that eating disorders are just a bad choice someone is making. It's really when someone's brain chemistry kind of gets out of control. And so the small things that they do, that we all do, become an obsession, become something that they can't stop. So it's almost like an addiction to the eating behaviors.
Can childhood play a role in how somebody develops a relationship with food?
100%, yes, because we're all raised by humans, I hope, and humans have dysfunctional eating behaviors. We get our emotions mixed up with our food. We've all had bad experiences with food. We've all been taught rules about food. And unless we consciously try to undo those, try to recognize them and undo them, then we're just unconsciously continuing to play them out. Childhood is so important in the development of eating habits, not just eating disorders, but also the way that I guess I try to think of it as dysfunctional eating behaviors because eating disorders, when you think about eating disorders, it's hard not to think about this small, rare kind of condition. And instead, if we think about dysfunctional eating behaviors, we all do messed up things with our food, things that we regret about food, try different eating styles to see if it makes us feel better or to see if it makes us lose weight. And so all of those things usually have a root somewhere in our past. Sometimes it's more of a something a friend or a peer or classmate kind of came up with versus a parent. But yes, a lot of this stuff is based in childhood and how we sort of develop our relationship with food. Yes.
Growing up, a lot of times when we are hanging out with people, whether it's friends or family members, from my personal experience, I was always comparing myself to others on how this person looks and versus how I look. Because I grew up as a dancer. So, like in the dance studio, you literally grow up in front of a mirror. And I
Yeah.
felt like always judging myself or comparing myself to the person next to me. How can people who are in those kinds of situations create healthy relationships with food?
Well, I think it comes from the top because when you're younger, especially if you're in a dancing situation, you've got your instructor who really is such a role model and authority figure for you, sorry. And if the instructor is sort of is critical, which sometimes they are,
Yeah.
in a way that makes you feel like there's something wrong with you, then you can sort of take it out on yourself and think, well, if I can change, then they'll be more proud of me or I'll do a better job or I'll be more graceful. And if instead they focus on, you've got the body you've got, let's work on your technique, let's work on your rhythm, right? Versus if you changed your body, you would be a better dancer. Because what ends up happening is, like you said, comparing with other people, we're never going to have someone else's body. And so if you try to starve to get a different body, you're ending up ruining your own performance. You may get smaller, sure, but you're not actually fueled. You're not actually thinking at your best. You're not actually doing your best as a dancer. So there's so much more to sports performance and dance performance than just what your body looks like. But because you're constantly looking in a mirror and being judged, it can be really hard to separate that from how my body looks and instead think of it as this is a critique of my dance performance. And that's what I want to work on, as opposed to this is a critique of my body. And that's what I need to change.
Something I like that you said was, yeah, you may look better, but you're not feeling your body the way that it needs to be. So, like, for example, like if there's parents out there who are raising children, how can they encourage their children to have a more healthy relationship with food and not look at it as, oh, this is not making me look good?
I think it's so important to separate food from how your body looks, right? You eat food, your body breaks it apart into the molecules, and somehow, amazingly, those molecules go to the right place. Like the leg molecules go to the legs, and the hair molecules go to the hair. Like, I don't know how it works. I mean, I do, but I'm just saying I don't need to know the details of it for it to happen naturally in my body. And yet, we try to make it sound like the way you eat is going to affect your size, your appearance. I'm 5'1". I'm not going to be taller, right? It's not possible. I have brown hair. It's not going to be a different color unless I dye it. But what I eat is not going to change these factors about myself. And yet we talk about food as if it could change all these things about you. And so it's really important to focus on food as a tool. Food is fuel for your body. Food helps your body grow, as opposed to food is going to make your body look different. Yes, you can change your body shape and size somewhat by messing with your food, but there's always repercussions that are negative. And that's the part that I think people leave out. They say, well, we'll just cut back, eat less. And they don't think about it as what are the effects of that? Malnutrition is really significant. And we seem to think that malnutrition is only people who are super skinny or underweight, emaciated, when actually you could be a normal size and be malnourished because of the way you're eating. So if we stop thinking about food as an appearance related thing and focused on food as this sort of productive tool that we use to fuel our bodies, I think that would be a lot healthier. And the other part is to make sure that kids know that they are loved no matter what, because for some reason we think that it must be so easy to be a kid, but I mean, the kids in my life, the boys, especially when they hit like 12 years old, they grow like 6 inches. That can't be easy. You don't fit into anything, right? Their feet double in size. They're enormous. They have pecs. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm sure they have hair in places that I don't even want to know, but like your body changing. Imagine for us, like as a grown woman, like if hair just suddenly started growing somewhere, like these are really stressful changes. And so to make sure our kids know that we don't love them because of how their body looks. We love who they are, and we're here for them regardless of how their body may change. Now, if the changes are extreme, we'll get medical attention and we'll find out if something needs to be looked at. But your average sort of girl growing boobs and, those kind of things can be really stressful for them, and they need to know. I mean, I remember when my niece started getting little booblets, and my brother was like, do I still hug her? And I was like, oh my God, don't stop hugging her because she has boobies. Like, that's going to make her feel like there's something wrong with her, right? So that's the kind of thing that we need to focus on, because kids' bodies are going to change. So if we notice it and focus on it and talk about it, that's so stressful. We want to make sure that they know that they are safe no matter what. And it's really hard, like, for example, to see my nephew and not say, oh my God, you've grown so much. But I feel like then we're just focusing more on what may be an uncomfortable thing. So instead I try to remember to say, I'm so happy to see you. I love you so much, and not focus on how he looks.
That's such great advice, truly, because, it's like we go through a growth stage with our bodies as teenagers and we change immensely, whether it's male or female, we all go through it. And I think a lot of times it can be hard with our self-image when someone is like, oh, you look different, or XYZ is different on you. And then that can also not make us want to change our perspectives on the things that we eat or the things that we do.
It reminds you that people are watching you, right? And it makes you sometimes even think like, oh, when they say like, oh, your hair looks so good, like that's nice, but did my hair look bad yesterday? Like, it just opens the door to all kinds of things, thoughts, insecurities that we can have. And so I feel like to try to change our culture, changing our kids is the easiest way, changing the way we relate to kids, and just talk to them about how much we love them for them. And that will help with that feeling. Also knowing that they're safe with us. I mean, one thing I remember, I went from 9th grade to 10th grade. In the summer between 9th and 10th grade, I went from completely flat chested to like my full adult 34C boob size. And that was a big change. So I'm used to just any dress I want to wear fits me. And then the following year, I'm trying to pick out a dress for like a high school formal dance. And I remember being in the dress store, and the nice elderly lady that's helping me, she tries to zip up the dress, and now I'm a different size on top and on bottom. So it zips up to the middle of my back, and then she can't get it zipped all the way up. And my thinking is, I've seen this on TV. When someone can't zip their clothes, that means they're fat. Yeah. And so here I am. All I have is like a normal, like 14-year-old body. I just happen to have big boobs, so this dress isn't going to fit. But no one's said anything like that. It was just like, oh, this doesn't fit, or this isn't the right size, or we need to get a bigger size, or I don't know. The way it was framed somehow, even though I don't remember the words, it made me walk away with the feeling that something was wrong with my body because these dresses don't fit, as opposed to someone saying, oh, you know what? You have such a cute figure. Let's find a dress that will fit you on top and on bottom, or something like that. And so when I was helping my stepdaughter, she's now 27, but when we would go shopping for clothes, I always made it about the clothes, not about her body, kind of. So, like, for example, if something didn't look flattering on her, I would just say, you know what? You are so cute. So if that doesn't look good on you, it's definitely not the right dress, or that kind of thing. And like one time I remember she said something about her arms. I just think this doesn't look good on my arms, kind of like where I got the idea that she was saying there's nothing wrong with my arms, but like this doesn't suit me. And fast forward to a couple of years ago when she was picking out her wedding dress, and she picked her wedding dress, and then she sat down with the lady at the whatever, where they do the whole order. And the lady says, well, the sample you tried on was this one, but we always recommend getting a size up, but I don't know how you feel about getting that bigger size. And here's my sweet girl. And she says, oh, you know what? In my family, we don't care about what size. Get the size that's the right fit. Like that. And I was like, yay. So it's that kind of thing. It's like those everyday interactions. It's not having a big lecture about like, don't get an eating disorder. It's those everyday interactions where you help someone feel good about themselves. And that's just the body image part. With the food, it's the same thing. Not micromanaging what people eat. Sometimes they're going to eat more. Kids sometimes eat so much. You're like, that's weird. And then sometimes they don't want to eat anything, but you have to trust their internal cues that they're doing what's best for them. And when we try to micromanage, we end up making a big old mess.
Wow, it really goes down to how you feel and like the confidence that you have, and knowing that you are beautiful in your body, and everybody's body is so different that you really can't compare it to others. And it's
You
really
really can't. There's a saying about the trees. The one tree doesn't, the palm tree, let's say, doesn't compare itself to the oak tree and say, I'm not good. They're just both different. And that's how it would be great if we could feel that way. I'm thinking about this philosophy that I've kind of been cooking up, which is that I know I heard on the radio that, or in a podcast, that our brains haven't developed to hear our own voices because we only, like in the past, like, I don't know, 150 years, have had the ability to listen to our voice in a recording. So before that, the only way we ever heard our voice was in our own heads. And so you hear your voice in a recording and you're like, that's not my voice, or, ooh, I can't believe I sound like that, because our brains haven't developed to interpret our own voices. Isn't that weird? Because for thousands of years, we never had that opportunity. Well, I'm thinking, I wonder if the same thing is true about our appearance, because only in the past, however many hundreds of years, have we even been able to see a picture of ourselves. Or I don't think there were even mirrors for a long time in human development, right? So here's the anthropologist in me thinking maybe our brains haven't developed to really understand what we're looking at. And so we can look at a photo and, like, if you're the person on the end in a photo and you have like that giant arm, because you're like the closest to the camera, my instinct is to be like, oh my God, is my arm really that big? Well, no, it's not. But it's like my brain I have to like do that double take on it, because I wonder if our brains just aren't really developed to look at our own image and interpret it correctly. I mean, we know you don't see yourself the way I see you. You don't see me the way I see myself. Part of it is because we have feelings about ourselves and we have history. So in other words, I guess what I'm saying is the way you see yourself is more about what you've been told about yourself than it is about what you're seeing. And that's where to what you said, as far as raising kids, it's so important that we tell kids, you're beautiful, you're wonderful, you're smart, whatever, because that becomes their inner voice.
yeah. That's so true. Can you give us an example of what a healthy relationship with food is and an unhealthy relationship with food looks
Oh
like?
my gosh. Well, there's no perfect.
Yeah.
So a healthy relationship with food, I think of as someone who nourishes themselves sort of for their internal cues. Now, there are clues. There are medicines that interfere with that, and there are medical conditions that interfere with that. But in general, the idea is not following someone else's idea of what you should eat, but following what sounds good to you, feeling safe and comfortable that you can try something new and choose if you're going to like it or not like it. For some people, healthy eating means eating, several times a day. For some people, it's a little bit different. But it's that combination of your intelligence and then your inside. It's called interoception, how you feel on the inside, where you can tell if you're getting hungry before you're super hungry, if you can tell, that you've had enough to eat before you feel stuffed. Getting in touch with those inner cues is super important. Plus, adding in the discernment. So, for example, let's say I'm going on a hike with you today. We're leaving at 3, and let's say I'm not really hungry for lunch at noon. But I think, you know what? I'm going on a hike with Anita at 3. I really need to eat something now. So it's sort of like, yes, my internal cues are telling me I'm not hungry, but my discernment tells me, you're going on a hike. You really need to have something. What do you think you could have right now? And let's put some things in your backpack or your pocket so you can have them when you get hungry on the hike. So it's that combination of what I know about myself plus how I'm feeling. And both of those things are kind of drummed out of us as we grow up. I mean, if you go to school and you say, well, okay, it's 10:45. I'm hungry for lunch. And lunch isn't till noon. Well, the end. Lunch isn't till noon. You have to wait, right? Or the opposite. I know sometimes kids have lunch at 10:30. Well, they're not hungry maybe at 10:30, right? They're hungry at 2. I mean, it's so complicated to try to organize people according to a schedule when really our own bodies are on different schedules. So it's sort of unlearning some of that stuff and getting back into what is really best for me.
Can you go a little bit into like emotional eating or stress eating and how that can
Sure.
play a role?
So
Yeah.
stress is a mood altering chemical, right? Stress
Yeah.
kind of saps out your good brain chemistry and makes it hard to stay in a good mood. And food is a mood altering chemical that can help you feel better. It's very temporary, doesn't actually get rid of the source of the stress. But for many people, when they're stressed, and I think it's a little bit heavier on like anxious people who are anxious eat more is like 2/3, and like 1/3 people who are anxious eat less. So some people eat more, some people eat less, because not eating is actually mood altering. It changes your brain chemistry too. So dieting or eating under stress is both, it sort of soothes emotions, but only for a little while. Changes your brain chemistry, but just for a short period of time. And that's why people keep going back to it. So someone might eat something, say, mentally, okay, I feel better. I had a couple cookies. And then 5 minutes later, they go back for more cookies, go back for more cookies, go back for more cookies, because they're just seeking that relief that those nutrients provide for them.
Wow, that's really great advice because I think a lot of times I don't even think like I mean, we all go through it. I go through it too sometimes. It's like you don't even feel hungry, but it can be like emotional or bored. Does bored eating go into those categories as well, or is that
Totally. So a lot of feelings feel empty, right? You can feel bored, empty. You can feel lonely, empty. Those are sort of empty feelings. But food only solves hungry. That's the only feeling food solves. So if you're going to food to try to feel lonely, it's going to be a lot of food before you realize this is not helping, right? So the classic example is eating ice cream out of the container, right? That's like total breakup behavior. And so it's in every cliche and every rom-com, eating ice cream out of the container on Saturday night, bored, lonely, sad, depressed because of the breakup. It's really not that big of a deal if someone's like, yeah, I just had a breakup, eating ice cream out of the container, blah. It would be better if they were doing it with a friend, because then you're also having sort of an outlet for the feelings part, right? If you're doing that and you're getting support, then it's not going to last. But if someone is, let's say 9 years later, they're still eating ice cream out of the container every Saturday night because of that breakup 9 years ago, that tells me two things. One is they're probably eating more ice cream than maybe they need. But more importantly to me, is they have some grief and loss that's not been addressed, that's not been resolved. They haven't had an outlet. They haven't had enough support. They haven't had any healing. And so emotional eating, if you can figure out what the emotion is behind it, can point you to a need for something else in your life. And yes, you could say, yes, I want a relationship. That's why I'm eating ice cream. Yes, I already know what's missing in my life. But if what you want is a relationship and what you're eating is ice cream, that's a mismatch. That's like picking up the phone when it's not ringing or something like that. That's like, I was going to say that's like taking a shower when you're not dirty, but when you're an adult, you take showers even if you're not dirty. But it's a mismatch of like, I'm lonely, so I'm eating food. Like those two things don't mesh. If you can investigate it, and this is one of the things I loved to do so much when I used to see clients, is to delve into the minutia of what are you eating and what is the significance, because there's so many parallels. It can be such a metaphor. The way you eat can be such a metaphor for what's going on for you emotionally. And if you can figure it out, it's almost like these huge aha moments where, like, I'm thinking of someone who, she told me there was this Ben and Jerry's flavor that had white chocolate chips in it. I don't remember what flavor, but she would talk about digging through it and just getting the white chocolate chips out. And she was like kind of disgruntled because did they change their formula? Like there's not as many white chocolate chips. Like they're really digging there to get the white chocolate chips out. And so we're talking about this. And I said, what would it be like if you just got some white chocolate chips? A bag of white chocolate chips. Put it in the pantry. When you want white chocolate chips, eat white chocolate chips. We're not discussing whether this is nutritious or not. That's not the issue. The issue is let's try to figure out what the heck is going on with this behavior, this compulsive behavior. So she gets white chocolate chips. She puts them in the pantry. She's like, I'm not interested in white chocolate chips. I want to dig them out because it's very satisfying to dig them out of this ice cream. Well, something just clicked to me. I don't know if it was the first time we had this conversation or if it took me a few times to clue in, but I suddenly said, the way you are talking about this ice cream is the same way you talk about your boyfriend. It's disappointing. You have to do more work than you think you should have to do. And the result you get back is not satisfying. I was like, oh my God, this is for therapy. Like, I'm a dietitian. And she was like, you're a magician is what you are. But to me, I'm like hearing her say these words and she's not talking about ice cream anymore. She's talking about an unfulfilling relationship. Right? So that's the kind of thing that's like so amazing when if you can dig down. And a lot of times it does take another person to help you, and someone who's not afraid to say weird shit. Like, because some of this is so, I don't know if subconscious, unconscious, whatever, but it's so behind the scenes that you have to just kind of be very right-brained about it. And like, it doesn't matter that this doesn't actually make sense. If it makes sense when I say it, if you're like, oh my God, then it makes sense. Like, that's how we dig to it. And I love those moments when like I said, when I worked with clients, like those aha moments where you're like, oh my God, I'm fucking digging for satisfaction in my relationship. I'm not digging in my ice cream for white chocolate chips. This is like, wow.
I'm laughing because I feel like you just described the situation I went through once upon a time when I was in an unfulfilling relationship. And you took the words out of my mouth. They went back to the Ben and Jerry's. Went back to the Ben and Jerry's, and it wasn't the white chocolate chips. It was the brownie chunks. And I was always like, if I saw brownies, I didn't on the shelf at the grocery store. I didn't want them. I wanted to get them from the Ben and Jerry's. It's a real thing. I will tell you, if your relationship is unfulfilling, you're going to try to find satisfaction somewhere else, and it may not be another person, but it may be in that ice cream.
That is hilarious. I'm so happy you shared that.
It was always, I didn't care about any other ice cream because you know how Ben and Jerry's are. They have like the little different layers. It's like 3-4 layers. Yeah, it's more it's satisfying because you're not getting satisfied in that relationship. Wow.
See, but doesn't it feel good to like realize like I'm not crazy, you're not crazy, like this is a real thing. And it's weird because it's like so subconscious, but like it clicks. I love it.
Wow. Okay. I'm just like, this is incredible because I've never had someone say that out loud, but like I would definitely, the pieces just were put together in the puzzle. So thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.
Wow. Well, going back to relationships with food.
Yes.
If somebody's had an unhealthy relationship with food for a couple years, or let's say they're a young adult now and they're trying to create a healthier relationship with food, what are some steps that they can take to try to build a healthier relationship?
Well, the first thing I would say is you have to sort of get it out of your head, right? So you have to either write it down or talk it out with someone. It could be your best friend. It could be your teddy bear. It could be a therapist. It could be a dietitian. It could be a coach. But when things are like circling around in your head, you cannot see it clearly. And so getting it out is the first step. And so it depends if you're comfortable talking to a human or you need to just write it in a journal. Or I have a workbook called the Healing Your Inner Eater workbook that helps you try to start getting it down. But sort of starting to write down the things, noticing, and then writing down or talking about the beliefs that you have, the messages that you hear in your head about food and eating. And in my experience, no one makes up new stuff about eating every day. It's like the same 10 or 15 things. Like, I ate too much. I'm going to get fat. If I eat that, I have to get rid of it. I'm a failure because I can't stick to my diet. Like, it's the same 10 to 15 things. And once you sort of get those out and see how much they recur in your mind, then you can start to choose, like, which of these are useful? Which of these do I believe? Which of these do I want to keep? And if I don't want some of these, then what is an alternative thought that I can have when those come into my mind?
That's really great. How can somebody choose what kind of diet is best for them and for their lifestyle? I know there's so many when it comes to keto, vegan, paleo, all of those, or just limiting dairy and things like that. How can somebody find a best diet?
All of that is just keeping people busy with bullshit. Okay. I'm sorry to say that, but it's like a project. Like, I'm going to get a new notebook and I'm going to get new pens and I'm going to throw out everything in my pantry. I'm going to get organized. I'm going to get new organizers, clear plastic organizers for my fridge. And I'm going to get special water bottles. And like, it's so fun. We get so wrapped up in the enthusiasm of starting something new. But the truth is, we should just be listening to our bodies and deciding. Like, for me, I really like, oh, I'm trying to think of something I like, but if I eat too much, then I don't like it anymore. Like a donut. Like, I will happily eat like a donut and be like, this is really good. But then if I think tomorrow I want a donut again, I'm like, no, I really don't. Like, I had it with donuts. Like, that's the kind of thing that in your mind, you just want to be okay with, right? So here's another example. When you're sitting on a plane and they give you that little bag of pretzels, like, we're so conditioned to like open the bag of pretzels and eat it. No one says to themselves, do I want pretzels? Am I hungry for pretzels? Would I rather have this banana that I brought? Would I rather have a chocolate chip cookie? Would I rather have a turkey sandwich? We don't even do that because it's like, here's a bag of pretzels. You eat the bag of pretzels like a robot. And so it's every little thing like that of being mindful, I guess is such a buzzword, but I would just call it noticing, just noticing the interactions you have with food and how automatic they can become instead of really listening and caring. Another example is when people offer you food and they've made it for you and you feel bad, like, I don't really want that, but they made it for me, that kind of thing. And finding a way to sort of be okay with the fact that like you have preferences and you may not want something, but that doesn't mean you don't love or appreciate that person. There's just so many interactions that we have. And so that's a long answer to your short question, but we just got to become more aware of it and make conscious choices instead of letting, when I say external cues, I mean certain diets, that's just an external cue. That's just a way of organizing our thoughts. Like, how many grams of carbs does that have in it? Should I eat it or not? As opposed to like, does it sound good? Am I hungry? How much money do I have? When will my next eating opportunity be? Like, all of those things come into play. And yet we just want someone else to tell us what to do.
Yeah, that's very valid. I can agree with you on that because I think a lot of times it can just be overhyped with like these certain diets, but I think it's just being mindful of it, like listening to your body and listening to your emotions. So you're not overeating, but you're not undereating, but also just learning what you like. I hear a lot of people say like add more colors to your plate. What's your opinion on that?
I think that's great. I mean, not like crayons, but colors of food. Sure. But I do think that that kind of idea of variety can be a little bit overhyped though, because if you just really love apples, like it's not wrong to have an apple every day, So I think, yes, have colors on your plate, but don't become like weirdly obsessed about it. It's okay if you eat things that are white. Well, I do workshops and so we kind of do the same thing, but in a big group and not with people who are maybe really like suffering, but people who are just kind of like living their lives and they're like not even realizing how much this stuff is affecting them. And I love sort of helping people point it out. I mean, I'm thinking of an example at one of my workshops where this woman said, we're talking about, we did an exercise where everyone writes down who raised them and what those people's eating patterns were like and how is it affecting them now. And this woman said, my mom always had to put something cold on the table if we're having hot food. And I don't really understand why, but I still do it. And my kids make fun of me because we'll order a pizza and then I'll bring pickles to the table. And they're like, that doesn't go with pizza. It's like, we just need something cold. Like stuff like that, where people are just doing things and don't even kind of realize why they're doing it. and just talking about it just brings it out. She can still do that. It's not hurting anybody, but it's like just saying it out loud, like, here's this weird thing I do with food. It just takes the shame away. And that's so crucial because we all do things that we're embarrassed of. And I think shame is a killer. Like if we can just talk about stuff, it makes it just so much less powerful. Like even now, I bet you're thinking like that Ben and Jerry's thing, like, oh my God, that's so, now that I know that I'm digging for brownies because I want some fulfillment in my relationship, like I can still eat the Ben and Jerry's ice cream, but now I'm not like beckoned by it, kind of. It's like I can just eat it if I want it and I cannot eat it if I don't want it. I could try another flavor. I could never eat that brownie chunk ice cream for the rest of my life now that I know what was going on.
Yeah, it was every time I went grocery shopping, Ben and Jerry's was always on the list. And then after I left the relationship, I don't care about it.
That is nuts.
I know. It's amazing how it works.
It's amazing. We're all digging for something in our relationship.
Wow. You talked briefly about shame and food. Can you talk about a little bit how that relates to each other?
Sure. So shame I think of as just embarrassment, feeling guilty, feeling regret, feeling like we did something wrong. I'd lump all of those into that category. And the problem with shame, okay, I'm going to try to draw you a picture with my hands, okay? Let's say you do a little thing, we'll call it a lapse. Let's say you're really trying to, I'll just make up colors. Colors on your plate. You're trying to have at least 2 colors on your plate every time you eat. And let's say one day you look down and you're like, oh my God, I totally fucked up. I have no colors on my plate. It's all white. It's like white rice and who knows whatever. And so you feel like you made a little mistake. Well, that doesn't feel very embarrassing, but let's just say that you feel like, gosh, I'm such a failure. I was like marking in my calendar, my bullet journal, every time I ate colors, and now I can't mark today because I screwed up. I don't want my husband to know because I made this big deal about how we're all eating colors all the time. Like you have all these reasons why you feel ashamed and embarrassed about it. Well, what can happen is it can become a much bigger problem where it's just a little tiny thing, but then your brain is kind of like, well, I fucked up once. I might as well screw up everything. So now you're eating donuts and now you're binging on sweets. And because something about that feeling of like, I messed up and like, fine, I'll start again tomorrow, but it just spirals out of control. If on the other hand, you could just picture it as, yes, I did a small thing that I regret. Regret is like my favorite word to use in these situations. Okay, well, you know what? I regret that I didn't go to the grocery store and so I didn't have all the colors that I wanted on my plate. Or I regret that I forgot about this. So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a sticky note on the fridge that says, remember your colors. Like if you regret something, you don't feel embarrassed about it. You can just be like, how can I do it different next time? What could be my plan? I'm going to ask my husband to help me remember or whatever. And it takes that, like, I have to keep this a secret, which then ends up exploding. So I'm thinking the way I came up with this idea is so silly and not related to food, but I was snorkeling and I realized I didn't reapply my sunscreen and my back's all burnt. And I know this is silly, but I had this sort of shame emotional reaction to that. Like I'm a grown-up person. I'm not supposed to get burned. Getting burned causes skin cancer. La, 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 la. Like I can't believe I didn't think to reapply my sunscreen. And all this stuff just went through my head. It was so mean-spirited, No one else was saying anything, but in my own head, I felt really bad. And it occurred to me if I would use the same language that I used with my clients. So if I just said, you know what? Everybody makes mistakes. I regret that I did not reapply sunscreen. That sort of opens it from this whole like defensive situation to what could I do next time, right? How can I take care of my sunburn now? Let's get some aloe vera gel. I'm not embarrassed to tell my husband we need to go to the store and get some aloe vera or go to the front desk and see if they have aloe vera gel. And you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to set a timer, or tomorrow after we have lunch, help me remember, let's do our sunscreen again after lunch. Like you can get other people to help you. You can use your resources. You can think clearly about it when you're not in that shame spiral. That shame spiral just completely cuts off rational thought and makes you feel terrible. So if we can just, let's say, mess up with our food and then be like, oh yeah, you know what? I regret that I skipped lunch. Tomorrow I need to be more proactive, right? Instead of like, oh, I skipped lunch. Oh my God, I'm a failure. as a dietitian. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Thank you for sharing that. Before we go ahead and wrap things up, is there any piece of advice that you'd like to leave with the audience and the listeners that we haven't covered?
I mean, I think the most important thing is just that you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You've just learned to do the things you do with food, maybe as a survival mechanism, maybe because you were taught to do it that way, but it's never too late to be an adult and say, I want to do things differently. And if need be, get help doing it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Jessica. Tell us, where can people find you and where can they support you?
Thank you. So jessicasetnick.com is my main umbrella website, and that's where you can find out how to, if you have a group that you want me to come be a presenter, a consultation, there's lots of free resources. Jessicasetnick.com is the place to go. And if you're specifically interested in that Healing Your Inner Eater workbook, you can go to healingyourinnereater.com.
Thank you so much. I'll have all of that linked down in the show notes below so people can stay in touch with you. Thank you, Jessica.
Awesome. Thank you.